love, betrayal, and an auction in front of a crowd. They returned to where their story began. A romantic evening, nostalgia, dancing. But one unexpected guest changes everything. A glance held too long, a touch too familiar. Then her words, "I'm sorry, but tonight, I'm leaving with him." Laughter ripples through the room. Whispers spread like wildfire. But he doesn't beg, he doesn't plead. Instead, he lifts her wedding rings high and declares, "All right then, who wants to bid?" But nothing in this story is what it seems. Everyone has a role to play. Are you ready to learn the rules? Hello, my friend. I'm so glad you stopped by my channel. If it's your first time here, don't forget to subscribe and like this video, as every like truly inspires me. Please tell me which city and country you watch this video from. Now, let's get started. Our 12th anniversary was fast approaching, and my wife, Jenny, and I had been eagerly awaiting the chance to celebrate together on Saturday. As business partners who spent most of our time traveling, our relationship had experienced its fair share of strain. Lately, I had felt a growing distance between us. Determined to bridge the gap, I devised a plan to revisit the place where our love story had begun, Chicago. Specifically, I wanted to take Jenny back to the very club where I had proposed, hoping that reliving the memory would bring us closer again. Before setting anything in motion, I checked whether the club was still around. To my delight, it had not only survived the years, but had remained under the same ownership, barely changing at all. Thrilled, I invited Jenny for a night of dinner and dancing, and she accepted with a giddy excitement that instantly transported me back to the night I had asked her to be my wife. In that moment, it felt as though time had barely touched us. Years ago, I had worked tirelessly, juggling multiple jobs for 3 months to save enough money for that special evening. My father had offered financial help, but my pride wouldn't allow me to take more than what he had originally given me for emergencies. I wanted to do it all on my own. After an elegant dinner and a few tender dances, I had led Jenny to the club's terrace, where we stood overlooking the Chicago River. The water, restless as it flowed toward Lake Michigan, reflected the twinkling city lights that refused to be swallowed by the current. That night, as I knelt before her, asking her to share a lifetime with me, I knew in my heart I had made the greatest choice of my life. I had never once doubted it. Now, as Jenny readied herself for our evening out, I made a quick trip to the local florist, returning with a bouquet of her favorite flowers. When I knocked on the door, just as I had done all those years ago, she answered with a brilliant smile, touched by the small but meaningful gesture. As expected, she needed an extra 15 minutes to get ready, but once we stepped out, it was as if we had traveled back in time. My research had been accurate. The club was just as we had left it. The moment we walked through the doors, nostalgia washed over us. A waiter escorted us to our table, and over dinner, we reminisced about our past, our childhood in Chicago, our school years, the moment we met, and our wedding that followed. Work had taken us away from the city for so long that this visit felt almost like coming home. After finishing our meal, we moved to the lounge, choosing a table close to the dance floor. The live bands of our youth had been replaced by a DJ who played a mix of vintage tunes and modern hits. I waited patiently for a soft, romantic melody before reaching for Jenny's hand and guiding her to the dance floor. Holding her close, her head resting lightly on my shoulder, we surrendered to the music, gliding together in perfect harmony. We danced for nearly an hour before exhaustion set in, prompting us to return to our table. Just as we settled into our seats, a man approached us. His presence exuded confidence, and his sharp features and strong build made it easy to see why he might turn heads. "Jenny? Jenny Johnson?" he asked, recognition flashing in his eyes. Jenny looked up, startled before her expression shifted to one of pure joy. "Dennis? Dennis Blake?" she exclaimed, her voice brimming with excitement. "It's really me," Dennis confirmed, grinning. Jenny sprang to her feet and wrapped him in a tight embrace. I can't believe this. It's been ages. How have you been? Her enthusiasm was so palpable that even a nearby table seemed to take an interest, a woman subtly leaning in to eavesdrop. Dennis chuckled. The last time we saw each other must have been just after high school, he mused before pulling her into another hug. For a fleeting moment, it was as if I had vanished. Then, as though suddenly remembering my presence, Jenny turned toward me. Oh, I'm so sorry. This is my husband, Walt. I stood and extended a hand, but Dennis barely acknowledged me with a curt nod before shifting his attention back to Jenny. Mind if I join you? He asked, lowering himself into a seat before we could respond. Of course not. We have so much to catch up on. Jenny beamed, her focus solely on him. To say I was irritated would have been an understatement. They quickly became immersed in conversation, leaving me to play the role of a silent observer. Dennis explained that he had moved away right after high school and had only returned for business on rare occasions. He admitted that he had simply stopped by the club for a drink before heading to his motel when he spotted Jenny on the dance floor. Unsure if it was really her, he had waited until we sat down before approaching. I fought to maintain my composure, leaning back and listening as they rehashed old memories. Dennis showered Jenny with compliments, marveling at how little she had changed in 12 years. She absorbed his flattery eagerly. My irritation intensified when the topic shifted to their past relationship. Laughing over their youthful recklessness, they openly discussed their history, including moments that should have remained private. The hushed whispers from nearby tables confirmed that others had taken notice as well. Then, in front of me and anyone else who cared to listen, Dennis made a startling confession. He admitted that leaving Jenny had been the greatest mistake of his life. Though he had married someone else, he had never truly moved on. I should never have left without you, he declared, his voice heavy with sincerity. My hands curled into fists beneath the table, my patience unraveling. I was seconds away from putting an end to this and taking Jenny home when Dennis, without a single glance in my direction, extended his hand toward her. Care to dance? Without hesitation, Jenny took his hand, allowing him to lead her onto the dance floor. A man seated at the next table muttered something under his breath, mirroring my own unspoken thoughts. As the music played, Jenny and Dennis began with a polite distance between them, but as the slow melody carried on, that space began to shrink. Bit by bit, step by step, they moved closer, until the gap between them had all but disappeared. I sat alone at the table, fingers tapping against my beer bottle as the slow rhythm of one song faded seamlessly into another. The low murmur of nearby conversations pressed in around me, each hushed whisper making it increasingly difficult to ignore what was happening just a few feet away. I exhaled, setting my drink down. Enough was enough. Pushing back my chair, I rose and crossed the room, resting a firm but deceptively cordial hand on Dennis's shoulder. Mind if I step in and take a dance with my wife? My voice carried a trace of mock politeness, barely concealing the sharp edge beneath. Neither he nor Jenny looked thrilled as I inserted myself into their little moment. I met her gaze, allowing the frustration simmering beneath my skin to surface. Remember me? Your husband? My tone was pointed, laced with quiet accusation. Jenny's expression faltered. Walt, please. Please what? Explain to me why you're spending our anniversary wrapped up in some nostalgic reunion with him instead of with me? I wasn't shouting, but I also wasn't lowering my voice. The subtle shift in the room told me others had taken notice. She sighed, her voice dipping into a softer register. Oh, sweetheart, I'm sorry, she said. It's been so long since I've seen Dennis. You remember? He was my first. A small, wistful laugh escaped her lips, and something inside me twisted painfully. Yeah, I muttered, forcing a tight-lipped smile. I think the entire room has pieced that together by now. I flicked my gaze around, catching the way strangers were watching. some with curiosity, others with thinly veiled disapproval. I returned my focus to Jenny, voice low but firm, and from the way he's acting, I'd say he wouldn't mind a reenactment of that night. If you don't put an end to this, I will. She exhaled, exasperated. Walt, don't turn this into something ugly. He's just an old friend. Can't you just let me have this moment? This moment? I repeated, incredulous. He's already ruined our night. What more do you need? Her features softened, and she reached for my hand. I'm sorry. I'll fix this. I promise. Before I could respond, the song faded out, and a firm clap landed on my shoulder. Dennis had returned, brimming with audacity. Come on, man, he said, making sure his voice carried. It's been 12 years. Let her have a little more time to catch up. Be a good sport. I felt the weight of judgment from all around me. A woman nearby looked scandalized. A man across the room wore an expression of pure disdain, as if I were the fool for allowing this charade to continue. Jenny turned to me, pleading silently. Please, she whispered. He leaves in the morning. Just let me have tonight. For a moment, I hesitated, feeling the collective scrutiny of the room pressing in on me. Weak. That's what they thought I was. And maybe they were right, because despite everything, I let her go. I returned to my table, ordered another beer, and watched as she and Dennis continued their dance. As the tempo shifted, I half expected her to come back, but she didn't. Instead, they remained together, their laughter weaving into the melody. Jenny moved against him with a comfort that made my stomach churn. The eyes in the room shifted, their focus now bouncing between the scene unfolding on the dance floor and the man sitting alone at the table, me. Then, the music slowed again. Jenny's arms looped around Dennis's neck, pressing her body to his, her head resting against his chest. His hands settled far too familiarly on her lower back. A few couples glanced at me, their expressions unreadable. Pity? Judgment? Disbelief that I was still sitting there, watching this happen? My jaw tightened. That was enough. I shoved my chair back, prepared to put an end to it, but before I could act, the song ended, and Dennis excused himself to the restroom. Jenny, breathless, wandered back to our table, sinking into her chair with a sigh. Wow, she murmured, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Fast songs really take it out of you. I scoffed, bitterness dripping from my words. Yeah, I noticed. You and your hero were putting on quite the show. Are we going home now? She hesitated. Something flickered in her expression. Uncertainty, regret, maybe something else entirely. Walt, she said carefully, you know I love you, right? The surrounding conversations quieted. My pulse stuttered. Of course I do. But as I said it, I wasn't sure I still believed it. She took a breath, as if preparing for something difficult. And I pray you love me enough to understand what I'm about to say. When Dennis comes back, we're leaving together. He's taking me with him. I'll be on a plane in the morning. The air around us thickened. There was no hesitation in her voice, no attempt to soften the blow. I looked around, meeting the stunned gazes of strangers who had become unwilling witnesses to the collapse of my marriage. The hell you are, I growled, my voice sharp enough to cut through the heavy silence. Please, Walt, she pleaded. It's just one night. I need this. Please understand. I let out a bitter laugh, shaking my head. Understand? You want me to understand that you're throwing away our marriage, on our anniversary? That you're humiliating me in front of a room full of people before walking out that door to sleep with another man? Before she could answer, Dennis reappeared, sliding behind her, his hands possessively settling on her shoulders. Ready, darling? He asked, smirking like a man who had already won. Jenny placed her hand over his. I'm sorry, Walt, she whispered, her voice heavy with finality. My chest ached as I met her gaze. Please, Jenny, don't do this. She shook her head. I'm so sorry. A ripple of shock moved through the room as she turned away, her fingers lacing with Dennis's. She didn't hesitate. She didn't look back. I shot to my feet, the chair screeching against the floor. "Fine," I shouted, my voice raw. "Then give me your rings." She froze, turning slowly. "What?" "You heard me?" I said, my tone cold and steady. "If you're walking away from everything we built, you don't get to keep those rings. They were a promise, and you're breaking it." Dennis let out an impatient huff. "Let's go." Jenny hesitated, then with slow deliberation, slid the rings from her finger and placed them on the table. Then she walked away. If he wanted to make a spectacle of himself, then so be it. She wasn't going to stop him. She could always retrieve them in the morning. "All right," she said, her voice clipped. "Fine, whatever." With a sharp exhale, she twisted the rings from her fingers. "Just don't lose them, darling," she added as she placed them in his outstretched hand. I tightened my grip around the small metal circles and raised my arm high above the smoky crowd. "What's my starting bid for this stunning wedding and engagement set?" I called out, my voice booming over the chatter. A shout from the back answered, "500! Walt!" Jenny's voice sliced through the laughter, sharp with disbelief. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" I shrugged, my grin edged with bitterness. "Clearly they don't mean much to you. Maybe someone else will appreciate them. Someone who actually gives a damn about marriage." I let the words sting before adding, "Don't worry, sweetheart. I'll be fair. You'll get half in the divorce." For the briefest second, I thought I saw her eyes glisten, but in the dim club lighting, I couldn't be sure. "Let's go," she said stiffly, her hand tightening around Dennis's arm. "He's bluffing," Dennis murmured as she hesitated. "He wouldn't toss away everything over one bad night." Still, she lingered. Then, after a final glance in my direction, she turned and walked away, shoulders tense with something unspoken. 600! Another voice rang out just as the door swung shut behind them. 2 hours later, I slid my keycard into the door of room 28 at the Arlington Hills Days Inn. The lock released with a soft click, and I stepped inside. The first thing I saw was her, stretched out lazily on the bed, clad in a delicate purple lace bra. Her chest rose and fell with slow, measured breaths, and just the sight of her sent a familiar heat pulsing through me. Her dark blue eyes fluttered open, and a slow smile curved her lips as I shut the door behind me. "Well?" she asked. "Did you sell them?" "Of course." "How much?" Her voice was laced with eager curiosity. 1,800. She tilted her head, considering. "Not bad." "Not bad?" I echoed, raising a brow. She chuckled softly. "Decent for 3 weeks' work." Sliding off the bed, she approached with deliberate grace, looping her arms around my neck before brushing her lips against mine. The lace of her bra pressed against my skin, igniting a spark between us. She let out a low, pleased sound that vibrated between us. "Feeling playful, are we?" she teased. "It is our anniversary, after all," I said, letting the words linger between us. She grinned, biting my lip lightly. "And after tonight's little performance?" "Where's Dennis?" I asked, changing the subject. She pulled back just enough to study my face, her eyes glinting. "In his room. Might have company. He was on edge when we left. A few guys were watching him a little too closely, and he was convinced they might be waiting for him in the parking lot." "You think he's getting cold feet?" "Doubt it," she said. "He's making almost 10 times what he did as an actor. Double what he ever pulled in on stage." I exhaled through my nose. "Still, we've worn out our welcome here. Too many people recognize those rings by now. Chicago cops probably have descriptions of us. If they aren't all looking yet, some of them will be soon." She traced a finger down my chest. "Then I suppose we should make the most of tonight." I chuckled. "I'll give Dennis the heads up. We leave first thing after breakfast." "Don't take too long, darling," she murmured, her lips brushing my ear. I didn't waste time. 2 doors down, I knocked, and after a moment, The door cracked open. Jenny had been right. He wasn't alone. "Everything go smooth after we left?" Dennis asked from behind the narrow gap. "Yeah, pulled in 1800. His grin stretched wide. "Nice. Time to move on," I told him. "Heat's closing in. We meet at the restaurant at 9. We leave straight after." He nodded. "Got it." I clapped a hand on his shoulder. "You did good. Enjoy your night." His grin only widened. "Oh, I plan to." A giggle from inside the room punctuated his words before he shut the door. When I returned to our room, Jenny was waiting. The lace she'd worn earlier had disappeared, replaced only by a knowing smile. I didn't hesitate. Clothes hit the floor in record time before I joined her beneath the sheets, kissing her with a mixture of hunger and tenderness. She melted against me, purring against my lips. "And what do you plan to do with that weapon of yours, my love?" I smirked. "It's not a weapon. It's an instrument of passion, and I intend to use it on the most extraordinary woman I've ever known." She moaned softly. I like that." Twice more that night we lost ourselves in each other. Tomorrow, we'd be gone. But tonight we indulged in celebration. Completely spent, we clung to each other, enveloped in a warmth that only deep affection could provide. "Coming back to Chicago for our anniversary was the right call," she murmured, her breath a soft caress against my skin. "With all the moving around we do, I nearly forgot what it felt like to be home." I nodded, my voice barely audible. The constant relocations had begun to take a toll, chipping away at the foundation of our marriage in ways I feared acknowledging. My hope had been that returning to Chicago would rekindle what we once had, to remind us of the love that thrived in the city where we built our life together. "Do you think it did?" I asked, a quiet vulnerability laced in my words. She smiled, the kind of smile that carried unspoken reassurances. "Yes, Darlene, it did." A warmth bloomed in my chest as she gently cupped my face and pressed a lingering kiss to my lips. "Being here again has reminded me just how deeply I love you," she murmured. "Before you and Dennis left earlier, I could have sworn I saw tears in your eyes." "You did," she confessed, her voice barely above a whisper. "Sometimes, when I slip into my role, it feels too real." Tonight, just for a moment, I let myself imagine what it would be like if we actually separated. She shuddered slightly, as if the mere thought unsettled her. Her fingers traced slow, deliberate circles against my skin, and before I could stop myself, I started crying. I tightened my arms around her, anchoring her to me. "That will never happen. You and we're meant to be." Her eyes softened, filled with the kind of love that left no room for doubt. "So, my incredible husband, where's our next destination? Port Au, perhaps?" A slow grin spread across my face. I had a wife who adored me, who trusted me, who would follow me anywhere. Actually, I was thinking Dakota. With all the shale oil and those lonely men eager to throw their money around, I'd say we could retire in luxury. I was only half joking. Mostly. This story has come to an end. The moral of this story is simple yet brutal. Not all relationships are built on love, and not all betrayals happen by accident. Trust is the foundation of any relationship, easy to destroy, but impossible to fully restore. Sometimes, behind nostalgic memories lies cold calculation, and behind the words, "I love you," are hands ready to take away what matters most. But the key is to never let betrayal break you. Life moves forward, and sometimes losing someone isn't a loss, it's freedom. Respect yourself, cherish those who truly value you, and never be afraid to let go of those who don't. What's your opinion? Share it in the comments, my friend. And if you like this story, check out other exciting videos on my channel. I'll say goodbye until the next video. See you.